computer. Okay. Okay, so again, let me just repeat myself. So the tips and tricks is a new forum in Blue Iris, and within that, I'm creating a whole bunch of articles with performance and troubleshooting. And right now, I'm going to start off with if your software doesn't start up, what can you do? Okay, if the software no longer starts, I mean, there's little that can be done to troubleshoot the issue, right? Because you can't even get into the software. One thing to keep in mind is sometimes we get these tickets, and it's not that the software doesn't start, but it takes a long time for it to start. And if your software doesn't start in less than 5 seconds, there's something probably wrong with your file system. And simple, like that's a simple cue to tell you that you might want to run Microsoft Systems File Checker and look for damaged files. And this is almost always a reason why Blue Iris would not start within the first 5 seconds. Like I've had customers reach out and say like, it doesn't start for like 30 minutes. That's definitely not normal. And it almost always has to do with your file system. Okay, so this is the context here is your software doesn't start, right? So the first thing is if you're running a service, make sure to stop that service. And I walk through the steps to do that. To do so, in the Windows search bar, type services and bring up the services app. Find the Blue Iris service app, Blue Iris service. And so pictures with 1,000 words. So you just go to search. I have 2 windows. That's why you can't see the search window, but I'm going to type in services. And then the app pops up. And then I go to Blue Iris service. And it's running right now. So what you would do first before you mess with the registry, like that's what we're going towards. You always want to make sure the software is not running, just so there's no bad outcomes. Blue Iris service, double click the entry, change startup to from automatic to manual, and then stop the service. So I'm just going to do that. I'm actually running this manually just because this is not my, my continuous. This is not my surveillance machine. This is my work PC. So it's already on manual. But to stop it, it's simple. Just select it and then hit stop. And that's it. So if you're running as a service, if you're not, you can skip this step. If you are, that's how you stop the service. So back up. Anytime you're messing with the registry, it's always good to back up. So global settings, about tab, export settings. Hopefully you guys know what that is, but just in case you don't, I will demonstrate where that is. I just stopped my Blue Iris. So let me start my Blue Iris manually, not as a service. Yes. And there's my Blue Iris. So like now you see like how quickly it should come up, like within seconds, no longer than 10 seconds, no longer than 5 seconds really. Okay, so my Blue Iris is up and export settings. So global settings, about, export settings, remember where you put it and then save it in an appropriate place. Just in case, it's always good to have a copy of your settings before you mess with the registry. Okay, so these are some of the cool things you can do. So the first thing you can do is you can just disconnect all your cameras and see if the software starts up. So that's what I'm going to do first. So you can read through this, but I'm going to demo it right now. All you have to do is turn off the software and then run Regedit. So again, it's here. Where is the registry instructions? Oh, I put it further down. Okay, so run Regedit to bring up your registry. If you don't know how to do that, there's instructions here, as well as I also put a YouTube video. If you're completely new to Windows or don't know what the registry is, here's a little help for a YouTube video from a third party that talks about the registry. So I'm gonna go to search, Regedit, Registry Editor, hit yes, and here's my Registry Editor. So I put where to go. You go to HQ. This is the key for Blue Iris. All the settings associated with Blue Iris is in this key under Blue Iris. So all you have to do is select it, copy it, go to the Registry Editor. You go and you search for it, and it pops right up. So there it is. That's Blue Iris. So all the things associated with Blue Iris is under this key. Okay. So once you're there, so what I'm going to show you right now is how do you like disconnect all your cameras, right? The reason being, like, oftentimes when you can't start up, it has to do some conflict between your cameras, the encoding of the cameras, and your hardware drivers, or just your hardware drivers. And so an easy way to get it up and running is just disconnect all your cameras. Like maybe there's buckets of things that you can look for, right, in Blue Iris. Like, is it the hardware? Is it the cameras? And so this is what we're doing is, like, when we say, like, dial it back and try to narrow down what the issue is, this is exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about, let's see if the cameras is causing the problems. And this is how we do that. So you go to the registry, and all the cameras under one key, like all your cameras is under one key. So if you do a rename and just call this camera X, for example, that's my example. Okay. I'm going to go back to, I'm going to start a Blue Iris now. Run it again. And boom, all the cameras are gone. But the database is running, the clip list is there. So, like, at least right now, you know some really important information. One of them being your database is good. And all the other stuff associated outside of the cameras is good. So this is like a very good first step to narrow down the startup issues and then get your software up and running. So if you gotten this far, that means you know that the issue has to do with maybe you added a new camera and that's causing the conflict, or maybe a Windows update is causing issues with your camera settings, for example. And it happens because we get tickets where they're like, all I did was a Windows update, and now the software's not running. It has to be with Blue Iris. And then sure enough, we'll turn off the hardware, and then it'll start working. And then the customers will ask, like, how come it was working before but it's not working now? And it's like that update had some conflict. Your hardware, due to that Windows update, caused some issues with Blue Iris, and that becomes more of an operating system drivers problem that Blue Iris depends on to get up and running. Okay, so if you got to this point, that means you know for sure that your startup has to do with your camera. So you want to, like, now roll in all the cameras one by one to figure out which camera is causing the problem, right? Like, you don't want to just turn them all on because it probably won't start up again. So we'll turn off Blue Iris. And don't forget to hit F5, because F5, well, you don't have to hit F, you don't have to remember F5, but view refresh, definitely remember, so that like, if there's not a camera directory, Blue Iris creates one. So delete the old one, and that's fine. And then rename your cameras back to your cameras. So now you don't want to start up Blue Iris, because now all your cameras will try to light up again, and you don't know which one's causing an issue, right? So the next step in the process is, this is a very good tip as well. So, like, that whole scenario I talked about where there's a Windows update and then the hardware was causing a conflict, and so the startup wouldn't work anymore. We often, at this point, like, if when I had Blue Iris up with no cameras, I would go into global settings, cameras tab, hardware accelerator code, and turn it off. I would turn off hardware acceleration for all of them, like narrow down the problem. Like, you know, like it's a, you know, we know it's a camera conflict somewhere, but it could be that camera with that hardware is causing the issue. So this is another step to like narrow down the problem to like get to the root cause. So this is what we usually do. We turn off the hardware, like simplify the scenario. Okay, so how do you roll back the cameras one by one? So Blue Iris is super cool. So like you go to first shutdown, we just did that. Type in Regedit, we bring up the registry, go to the keys, we did that. Go to all your cameras and change enabled to 0 if not done so already. This effectively disables all your cameras. Okay, so what? Let me unpack that a little bit. So on your cameras, you got your list of cameras. So pay attention to ADF7. So this camera is these are my main cameras. So these are all enabled. Okay. So I'm going to go to ADF7. Just remember that name. It's enabled right now, and I'm going to turn this to 0. Basically, I just disable that camera. So how do I know it took effect? Well, now I can go back to Blue Iris. Start Blue Iris admin, start it up again. Now watch, I'm gonna activate my cameras. Look at ADF7, disabled. Like it was on before, like, I mean, you can trust me, but you know, it clearly was. So now that's basically what you're doing. You're just turning off all your cameras one by one in the registry. So to understand like which camera is causing the problems, if it doesn't start, you can't access it to disable it yourself, right? And so that's how you do in the registry. So like if I were to, I'm not going to go through all these cameras, but what you would do is go through all your cameras and disable them one by one. Like ADF6, if you go to enabled, there's a lot of keys here, so be careful, like what you're doing. That's why you want to back up your registry first. Just turn them all to 0. And then once they're all off, then you can one by one turn each one on and figure out which camera is causing an issue. Okay. I'm gonna pause for a second to see if there's any, just to digest all that. Let me go back. All right, let me just revisit what I just talked about. So we talked about a few things here, right? So bringing up how do you debug your startup issues? So where we're at is like if you're having a long startup issue, like it takes a long time, 30, you know, like more than 10 seconds, more than 5 seconds, you got to think about what's going on with your file system and do you know, the Microsoft Systems file checker to see if there's any damaged files. Assuming that's not the issue, stop the service, back up your current registry settings. Always back them up because, you know, you don't want to, you're messing with some, you know, you could be messing up a lot of things that you shouldn't be touching. So always back up just to be safe. Disconnect all your cameras. So we talked about that. All you have to do there is change the cameras key to cameras X, and then all your cameras gone. And then once you've done that, you have that. Now you know, and the software comes up, your database, a lot of the back end stuff that's running to fulfill Blue Iris's features and functionality, you know, is running, which is great. You can disable, and then once you know that it's an issue, if there is an issue with the cameras, how to dive into which one. I told you to disable cameras one by one, disable all of them, and then enable a camera one by one, and then find out where that issue is happening, and that's with the enabled key, and then turn that to 0. Okay, now this is like 95% of troubleshooting that you guys will ever do. You can do some other cool stuff with Blue Iris. I was going to share that with you because, like, maybe it doesn't start. Like, maybe you turned off all the cameras and it still doesn't start, right? I've never had a case like that, but Blue Iris allows you to troubleshoot that as well. So what I mean by that is you can just go into Blue Iris. Let me turn off Blue Iris again because I'm going to mess with the registry. just to be safe. I'm going to go to the registry. Where's the registry window? Here it is. So that's the cameras section. So here's something really cool. You can go to Blue Iris and rename their whole key to like a Reg. And Blue Iris will just run no problem. So you can go to Blue Iris. I'm going to start up Blue Iris. Where's my shortcut key? I just do that. Start up Blue Iris. So it's a fresh install. Like, you know, it's bringing up the demo version. Like it doesn't even remember anything that I've done, whether it be my database settings, my clips and archiving, blah, blah, blah. And so you can just bring it up and it comes up and blank, no database, no nothing. And so at least you know, like at this point, if you got to this point, you know that the executable is fine. And it could be something with your settings, with your, you know, all the global settings. And it could be, at this point, you'd have to also look at your hardware because it could be something with your hardware. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Let me turn this off. So if you got to here, if you had to go to here and turn off everything, what are your next steps? If the program doesn't start with no setting, if the program doesn't start, then it's got to be something with your hardware. You know, or you can just download a latest version of the software and see if somehow that executable got corrupted. And if the software still does not start, you will need to examine the hardware and operating system. And if it does start, then we got to dive into, then you know that it has something to do with your global settings, and you have to dive into that part of it. Like for example, so at least you know, like in the bucket of things to look at. Let me bring it up Blue Iris again. Let me bring up the demo. If you're here, it's coming up. Give me a second. So if you're here, then it's time to think about what's going on with your global settings. And oftentimes, I would start with clips and archiving. Something with your NAS, something with your drivers to your storage. This is where I would start, I would think. But you have to work through all these tabs, like maybe you have some complicated stuff like FTP servers and stuff like that. So at least you know where to look. Okay, so final thoughts. At this point, your Blue Iris server should be up and running. Below are the topics dealing with system stability. So other cool things with Blue Iris. So like once you got it up, you may want to just dial back your settings because for whatever reason you messed it up, like your triggers, you're playing with it and then you realize like this is not going to work and you want to go back. That's a very common question that comes up. So it's all in Blue Iris. So rolling back to previous Blue Iris settings, I created a topic on that. This is fairly simple and easy. So by default, auto export is always checked, and then the ellipse, you can specify a file folder for where you want to keep the registry savings. I see no reason why the default isn't fine, but you can change that if you wanted to. So that's just make sure it's activated. And so because it's activated, by default, it just saves registry entries for the last 3 days in your program directory. So like if you're messing with your registry today, here's yesterday's backup.reg. Here's, 2 days ago. Here's 3 days ago. So it's all there. So you can easily import and erase what you did today if you ever need to. Just wanted to highlight that capability. And then, what's the last one? Rolling back to previous software versions. So this comes up too, like if you did the recent update and it's not working for you for whatever reason. So this is a common question. So how do you roll it back? Also, it's all built into Blue Iris. So conceptually, one thing to keep in mind is, like we have this update track, I guess, different tracks for how you want to update. And so the choices are no update, no automatic updates, critical, and all available. So I think the default is all available, and that may be fine, especially for, like a lot of you guys provide feature requests to Ken, and you're like dying to get that, to get that next release. And so that's fine. So all major updates might be working for you guys. So keep that. If you're more like, as long as I want the new features, but I want to make sure it's all vetted first, critical and highly update might be the right track for you. So choose that accordingly. And then some guys just like the granularity and control. So if you want to just decide for yourself when to update, just select no automatic updates, and you can decide when. And I'll explain that in a second. Okay, so that's the first part. Now, this article is about how to roll back. So in the context of rolling back, if you had critical and highly or all available, you got to change that to no automatic updates. And the reason is because if you left it all available major and minor updates, and then I'm going to show you in a second how to roll it back. As soon as you roll it back and start up the software, Blue Iris is going to check, because the setting is all major and minor updates. It'll see that it's not the current update, and then it'll start downloading and reinstalling that. So what you just did is going to just get reverted back to the recent update. So that's why you have to first change it to no automatic updates. Hope that makes sense. Once you do that, you just click on check for news and updates. And so news and updates, just break it down. So the top half is what you want to do. So like, do you want to stay on the current version? That's the first option. Do you want to go back to the last stable? That's 5.3.8.17. You can do that. Or do you want to, or maybe on a low, I'm always current, right? Because, I work for Blue Iris, but if you're like on 5.3.5, and this will get you to the latest update, like maybe there's like a bug fix that affects you, that's how you do that. And then if you're like, something was working differently in the past, you can always go back to older stable releases. So let me talk about that just quickly. Oh wait, let me go back to my Blue Iris first. I don't want to mess this up. Don't forget to hit F5 every time you go back to your registry, otherwise it could cause you problems. Delete the blank one. I'm going to rename my settings back. And then I'm going to start up Blue Iris. And there we go. I'm back to where I was. Oh yeah. Global settings, about dialog, check for news and updates. So if you want to roll back even further than the last stable, you select this, and then I just want to pay attention. I want to draw attention to these versions and why they're there. So like the versioning works by the most stable last version is the last number for that version. So 5.3.7.13 is listed just because the next version after this is 5.3.8. Okay, so we don't allow you to go back to 5.3.7.5 because we know that 13 is more stable. And so, or maybe, I mean, stable may not be the right word. Like it has all the features or whatever. So that's why the choices you have for going back is as so. So that last number means like that's the last version of 5.3.6 of 5.3.7, and 5.3.8 is the last one, which is listed up here. That's why it's not in this list box. Okay, so that's how you go back. And so once you decide what you want to do, like, do you want to go back to the last critical and stable? Do you want to go back even further? Do you want to update to the latest? Once you choose what you want to do up here, the bottom half is kind of cool too. So like how you want to do it. You can download only, retain a copy, and make a backup. So pictures worth 1,000 words. So I outlined that very clearly in the documentation. So once you choose what you want, you choose, what action you want to take and hit OK. So in terms of the action you take, you can do download only. So in the Blue Iris 5 program, the install directory for the executable, there's an updates directory. So if you do download only, you've downloaded it, but you haven't installed it. So this is the scenario where you want to play with it, but you want to play with it later, like you want to download and install. Okay. The next selection is retain a copy of the update package. So this is very similar to the first, but it does the install as well. So like, yeah, go ahead and install it, but give me a copy of it. So that's what the second choice is. Retain a copy and update. And the final selection, which is kind of cool if once you realize what it can do, is you make a backup with a current executable. Saves current executable with the version number in the file name, allowing the ability to quickly go back to original version desired. So like say you're going back to a different version and you're trying to play, you're trying to figure out like which one to go back to, if that's what you're trying to do. Downloading, installing, it could be laborious, right? So what Blue Iris allows you to do with that is it allows you to quickly play with the different versions and see which one works for you. So if you choose that last setting, let me go back, the make a backup of the current executable, what that's saying is in the install directory, the current executable, it appends the version number and leaves it in the same directory. So why is that of value? And if you install this blueiris.exe is what version you're downloading now and installing. So why is that? So say you downloaded 5.3.8, right? 5.3.8.17, the last stable, and that's not working for you. Or maybe it is working for you, but you realize that your current version was better. You can just delete the executable and then change the extension back to blueiris.exe, and then boom, you're back to your current version really, really quickly. So it allows you to play the different versions and get back, really quickly get to the version you want by not always having to, download, install, download, install. You can just delete and rename files. Kind of cool. All right, so some final thoughts on version control. So this is a scenario where you need to go back to a different version of the software. If you want to roll back to a previous version, and you want to roll back for whatever reason, just choose that appropriate version and then click OK, and Blue Iris will install that version. So, if you know that the current version 5.3.9.7 is not working for you, just click 5.3.8.7, hit OK, boom, you're done. Uncheck all this. It'll just download, install it, and you're done. And if you're in that mindset that I was talking about, where you're trying to figure out if a past version was working, but you want to eventually go back to the current version, or you're more exploratory, then I would recommend make a backup of the current. Select what you want, make a backup of the current executable, hit OK, and then you can just go to the executables and then quickly go back to what you were doing or stay with where you are fairly quickly. 8:30, not bad. I finished in half an hour. So performance and troubleshooting. So I'm gonna, keep flushing this out, but I just want to give you, this is basically a deep dive into the help file. So what I really want to do is it's very, in the very last section of troubleshooting and FAQs, there's all this, it's very understated here. There's like one line sentence referencing the capabilities, but I think there's some value in flushing this out and showing you exactly the power of Blue Iris and how you can self troubleshoot yourself with just the capabilities within the software itself. Okay, that's all I had. I'm going to open up for questions. Ken, if you wanted to chime in with anything that I missed or add some color, please feel free to do so. A lot of raised hands already. Okay, so we're gonna open up the Q&A. Q&A, where is it? All right, I gotta get my Zoom windows situated. Hold on for a second. Oh, here we go. Raise hands. Here we go. SP, allowed to talk.
Hello, hi, it's Steve, and I've been using Blue Iris since 2013. Very happy with it. And I actually mentioned this a couple weeks ago, and I've been trying to study it, but maybe like after a week or so, my PC locks up, and it usually has the screensaver on, so I can't see what happened. And the one thing I've been studying is that the Blue Iris memory, when I first started up, it starts at about 2 gig of memory of RAM, right? And then it'll just kind of slowly creep up to almost like 7 gig. And then sometimes I'll go back down to 2 or, and then start up again. And so somehow I think there may be some kind of memory issue, and I've got 16 gigs of memory. So there's always, when I see it creep up, there's always memory left over. I Ken already, kind of shows the disk status, right? The percentage is full and stuff like that. Yeah, so right there, I'm looking at the memory. Yeah, yours is tiny there at 65 meg, right? Mine always starts up at 2 gig. I mean, I've got 20 something cameras.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I've really turned mine on. So like this is my demo. This is my demo machine. So yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah, yeah. So no, that's exactly where I'm looking, right? And so, like I say, he keeps track of the disk and prints that out periodically. And I'm wondering if you could do that with the memory as well, or it just doesn't sound right that it should go from 2 gig to 7 gig and then come back down again. So there's something that's kind of eating up memory, and I think at one point it eats up a little too much and is unhappy. So, and I don't even know how to describe it to you as I've described it to you as a health ticket, but what information to provide. I've tried taking screenshots of the task manager because I couldn't find a good way to actually log that. I tried to look in the performance monitor. Anyway, so long story short is I think there's a memory issue. And then, how would I show you? And it takes like a week before it happens, right? What would be the information I should provide to you to kind of debug this?
Well, first of all, we need to know that, are you on the latest version? There was one feature that was changed with 5.3.9 that would release more of the memory. So that could explain why it's going up and down. I mean, if it's going down, I mean, that's not a problem. Then there's something called in programming, people like to say memory leak.
Yeah.
Technically would mean that the memory is never returned to the system until the program closes or crashes or something. But if you're seeing it go down to 2 on its own, then it's not a leak. It's just being used for something, and then it's being given back to the system.
Right.
So if it's Blue Iris using it, 5.3.9, we added a feature where it would purposely release some of the memory that was used for mainstream decoding that could use quite a bit of memory. But 5.3.9, it tries to release that as soon as it can to keep, in case you have many cameras with mainstream decoding going, that would start to eat up all the memory.
I'm on 5.3.9.6, but I saw it on. I've been seeing this for about 2 months.
One other thing that affects everybody all of the time, and I say it all the time, is your security software exemptions. It could definitely be one of those, but in experience, when one of those starts eating up memory, it is a leak and it does not come back. So it may or may not be that with you, but I would still double check all that. It's always a good idea.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've kept logs of the, screenshots of Task Manager like we're seeing here, right? And it's always Blue Iris. So, Yeah, so I don't want to get into kind of an individual debug here, but I kind of the broader ask is, I think it might be nice, just if Blue Iris can track and log memory usage in the system log. That's kind of the bigger ask, and then I guess I'll submit a support ticket, but
Right.
yeah, because I'm just using Defender and the default. I don't have anything special antivirus software or anything. Okay.
There was just we're on the topic of memory. There was a memory bug found. It was corrected in 5396, I believe. This would affect very, very few people. It only surfaced when you had a very high audio sample rate. This person had 48,000, which is well beyond CD quality, coming from the camera, and he was recording 12-hour files, and we found that 12 and a half hours and 48,000 kilohertz, the BVR format recording, there was a bug in there. But like I said, that's very unusual. Very few people would ever run into that bug, but it's
understood.
I'm not saying there's nothing else like that there, but the fact that you're saying that it's released back doesn't make me too nervous about it being a bug, but it's still possible.
Right. Well, it just seems like it grows over a week, and I mean it's great. Okay. All right. Well, sorry, I don't want to dominate this. Thank you again. I've been appreciating these sessions, right?
All right. Cool.
And enjoyed the software. It's just this last one's been kind of bugging me. So okay, thank you.
Hey,
Cool.
Steve, I did this webinar a while ago, but the exclusions, since you're on Defender, this is the way it should look. So the executable, as well as all your directories that are reads and writes to, including the database directory. Okay.
Okay, I will double check that. Yeah, because I've added a few extra directories, so that is worth looking at. Thank you for that tip.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I have some other stuff on the antivirus. I want to just go back because, yeah, this is huge because, like, the thing with the memory leaks is like if it were like, we have thousands of customers, right? So it can't be just one guy, or like a few people. Like, not that there can't be a problem, but it's
Yeah.
if we
I
had a
get your
memory
point.
leak, yeah, we had like 1,000 tickets like in a second. You know what I mean? Like,
No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. There's the firewall stuff. I'm sure you've set this up correctly, but it's always good to revisit. Where's the antivirus stuff? I think that was the antivirus. Okay, this is the antivirus. Oh, it is. Yeah. Okay. Raleigh, allowed to talk. Raleigh, you're on mute. If you want to unmute, you can. Jesse, allowed to talk. First one to speak. Go ahead. Raleigh, you there? You seem unmuted. Jesse, I can't hear you. Okay, I hear
Can you
somebody.
hear me now?
Yeah, there you are, Jesse.
Hi. I've been using Blue Iris and learning everything about Blue Iris that I can. Here recently, I've been using it for a long time and leaving my computer on and stuff. But here recently, I noticed that I've been having registration issues with Blue Iris. It'll stay registered, and then I just wait a few days, and there it drops my registration. I don't really understand why. I use Windows 10, by the way.
We can help you with that through support email. Most common causes for that would be it's running on more than one computer, and it may not be your doing. I mean, there are cases where we've sold licenses for resale, and sometimes those have maybe been resold again. So,
I only tried this out on one computer
Yeah,
at
it's
my
probably
house.
not your problem, but we can exchange the license for you. Just write to support and we'll be happy to help you out with that.
Yeah, I've done that, and yeah, it's been working for a long time for me, but here recently I just noticed there was an issue.
I can look for. I'll look for your email as well. Like if you said you sent one earlier, I'll take a look for it. But there's nothing wrong in just sending another email stating the license that you have. And
So, you say-
Y'all reset that for me recently because I thought the time of the license had gone out because I tried to re-register it too many times.
Yeah, that's something we can quickly help you with in support email. Just please write. The one thing, just to make sure all support email comes in, we have spam rules on there so that if you use the email support now button on the settings page and include that your support information in your email, it won't go to spam for sure for us. So we otherwise, if you just write a one-liner or something, there's a possibility that it goes to spam and we never see that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's my computer doing something or no.
okay, thanks, Jesse. Hey, that's a good point though, Ken. Like, let me just replay what you just said. So, anytime you send a support ticket, make sure to do email support. It copies all that information into your clipboard. So it's in your clipboard right now. And then when you go to email, let's see, let me all right,
Yeah, I'm not there right now where it is, but when I'm there next time.
if I do compose and then I do paste, all that information, all that information pops in, and then like make sure it pops in at the top, and then write your issue here, so it makes it easy for us to understand it.
Ah,
it
I
avoids the
see.
spam.
I guess I've never noticed that before.
Yeah, it's a really easy way to like this. It helps us really quickly understand your system and then work through your issue.
Okay, thanks.
And that's for everybody. That's not just for you, Jesse.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right, sure.
Raleigh, are you back? Okay, no audio, Raleigh.
Well, we've got a couple of Q&A questions here. Let me just answer those. Maybe he was going to ask the same questions live. He says, what could cause the cameras to change IP address frequently? I basically own and operate Foscam. They have been rather stable with Blue Iris. Well, cameras in all network devices are designed to pull an address from your router that's automatically, and it's called dynamically through this protocol called DHCP. What you can do, there's a couple ways to prevent it from changing. It may never change. The only time it would change is if the camera was offline and the router gave out an address at that same time, coincidentally. But what you can do is either reserve the address in your router, or it's a little more complicated. You can reserve the MAC address of the camera in the router. So one of those two things. And then you could possibly disable DHCP in the camera as well if the address is reserved and won't be given out by the router. It's a little bit complicated, but it prevents a lot of headache later with the changing address. And his first question was, what's the possibility of adding a feature of casting to a remote screen similar to Chromecasting? The possibility is kind of low, just to address it directly. Low for me doing it, but there may be other developers who would take on something like that. So it's possible. I'm willing, if somebody is out there wanting to develop something like that, just shoot me an email. I can help you.
I know we do have customers using Amazon Fire Stick as a. I think Chromecast has some like there's some SSL security stuff that makes it more challenging, and I should write an article on that. So I know it can be done with Amazon Fire Stick. I know other customers have done it, but I don't know the details right now, so I'm sorry, I can't share that right now. But I will put that on the list of articles to write about. Amazon Fire Stick is a solution. Okay, Matt Brandick, allowed to talk.
Hi, can you guys hear me good?
Yeah, there you are.
All right. Good morning. So I'm fairly new to Blue Iris, and we've been working with this company trying to set up their cameras. They have about 14 of them, and they are using the Hike Vision, the color view turret cameras. And we've got them working, but our CPU usage is like it's sometimes hitting 100, and I managed to lower it down to about 60% now. I've read up on all the forums and whatnot, and it's said to like lower down the frame rate. That might help it. And there's also been one that said that we have to activate the substream. But when I go to when I put the camera in and I go into the settings and I do the just a second, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can bring it up.
Give me just a second. Where's it at? Like when I go to find or identify or whatever, it doesn't populate the right there. It doesn't populate the main like what you guys are showing now. It just goes to like a generic.
Yeah, I hear you. Like you said a Hike Vision camera, right?
Yes.
So yeah, actually me and Ken were working on a Hike Vision. That's how we how we found this out. So like let's see, where is it? Which article is that? I think it's in the connection articles, IP camera connections. Let me log in so it's better.
Okay.
It looks better. So there was an OnViv gotcha. This was in particular for Hike Vision. So it seems like Hike Vision has a second level of security. I don't have a screenshot of the camera, do I? No, but like in the camera interface, there's a section for like OnViv access or something. And so we had to put whatever username password you use for the camera, that username had admin privileges for the OnViv. And then once we did that, the whole thing just spewed out like boom, 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 boom.
Okay.
So
now,
that was a gotcha.
Okay, and now did it populate or did it show up as a Hike Vision camera or hold on, let me just find out where's that at. So on the camera setting, video. Sorry, I'm just trying to navigate through this. Okay, configure. There it is. So when you go to find and inspect, does it say generic /OnViv or does it say yeah, right there. Yeah, yours says the same thing. So it doesn't say like the actual Hike Vision make and model and whatnot.
It doesn't. It starts off with generic. I mean, OnViv, once Blue Iris reads the OnViv stuff from the camera, and the access is provided so that it gets all the stuff, like the substream, like it all comes in from the OnViv, the substreams, right? Like the main of the sub. You're good to go. Like you could just choose them and run with it, but the reason why you would choose our make and model is like the most common reason is for the audio. Like if that camera's got audio, oftentimes that doesn't come through with OnViv, and so then Ken did some stuff in the back end to like make the audio work. So it pulls in, it takes advantage of all the stuff that comes in from OnViv, all the features and functionality provided by the camera. But then there's some additional stuff that users have requested that Ken figured out, and that's why you would change this to Hike Vision and model. If for some reason it's not behaving the way you want it to, like you're missing some feature, oftentimes some customer in the past asked about it, and we that could usually fix it.
Yeah, we're really just trying to bring down the CPU the usage, because it's like it's freezing everything down. Like the right now I'm looking at it, and we have the Intel Exxon CPU E5-2609, the 2.40 gigahertz, and it's just at 100 sometimes, and we're just trying to figure out why that's happening. I just cannot figure that out.
So right now you only have mainstreams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So once you get the subs in, it'll be a big difference.
Okay. So that would, and also there was one thing that I read on there. Sorry if I'm taking up too much time, but this is the last thing. I've read that I have to enable. Just a second. Let me just find it again. The hardware encoding and decoding, is that supposed to? So the hardware decode, I have it at default.
Yeah. Like what do for the camera, like default? Yeah. That's usually where I turn it off just for
Okay.
other reasons. But yeah, I usually have it at default as well.
Okay.
If you have it at default, then you need to look at the setting, the global setting on the settings cameras page.
Global setting. Okay.
Here you go, cameras. So I have an NVIDIA. I turn mine on for all the cameras. I mean, this specific to my PC, but this is where you choose. If you have hardware, like if you have an Intel processor, like you would turn Intel on, that kind of thing.
Okay. So I was pretty sure that it was the lack of the substring being off. That's what was causing all the CPU usage. That was, I just couldn't couldn't get it to work. But all right, thanks guys. I appreciate your help.
Yeah, and do it step by step. Like that document, it says like get the OnViv going, get the substreams going. Like there's just you turn things on incrementally so that
Okay.
it continues to work, and you know the hardware, like all these optimizations, it's all good once the camera's connected and they're it's a smooth experience, right? Like once you get to that, then you want to like optimize the hardware and stuff.
Okay. And this is Blue Iris Software /forum. Okay. All
Yeah.
righty. Thanks guys.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. No worries.
Mhm.
Let's see, John Egan, allowed to talk. Hey, John.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon. How y'all doing?
Happy Friday. We're good.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ken, very much for the response on that AMP Viv two-way audio. I'm going to try that today since I see the update is now actually past that. So thank you kindly. I have a question that I'm sure is the answer to which is extremely simple, but I don't know the answer. So I have a camera on the back of the house that's tucked up under the eave. When it rains, the rain rolls off the edge of the roof and down about 2 inches in front of the camera. And so it's constantly triggering the motion. Is there a simple way to prevent that? In the motion detection settings?
Well, honestly, I mean, that looks like noise to the motion.
Right. It's awful. Yeah. Is there any trick with make time or break time, or do I need to go physically put something up so the rain can't drip in front of the camera?
Well, no, so this kind of motion wouldn't have any of probably the object size, the contrast, the make time, the break time, none of that stuff will help really. I mean, you need to go on to the next one, which is the advanced section, and try to use zones, perhaps. Say only look for things that move from A to B.
Right.
And then it's artificial intelligence will really help on top of that. I mean, we do have a deal now with Sentry. We just added vehicle detection with them for 539.
Right.
but that's going to expand greatly. I have another deal working with a major supplier of AI, and it's just a matter of closing that up. And
Okay, cool.
yeah, so there's more major AI coming.
Okay, that's great. I just thought if there was a you know, full slot A and a slot B answer, that would be great. One other quick question. Is there any way to set up so that alerts auto delete daily or every 2 days?
Yeah, that's on the settings clips page, and you select
Right,
the folder for alerts, and then you
right,
can
but
find how many days.
there are no alerts in the alert folder. We
This,
Oh.
well, yeah, the physical folder on the drive usually doesn't contain any
right.
files. That's a different issue. But this will still control the alerts on the alerts list.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I'll hold until later on if we have more time at the end for any one more question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Yeah, this kind of setting, like this setting for the alerts tab, the 2 days, that impacts how long
Mm-hmm.
these are stored. So that's a good.
Exactly what I'm looking for. And I figured since there were not alerts in the alerts folder, that would not work. So that's a simple flap A and a slot B answer. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, John. It's kind of quiet in the audience. Ken, did you want to? Any other questions that you think should be raised? I can look. I'll look too.
Yeah, why don't we just encourage people to raise hands instead of the QA? It's yeah, we don't want to take time reading the QA.
Okay, Jorge, allowed to talk.
Yeah, I got a quick question. I'm testing Blue Iris on different platforms, and I was just wondering how many times can I, remove the, what is it, like the registration and reinstall it again before it locks me out.
I think it's 15.
There's a question about moving the license to another PC.
Correct.
Yeah, it's about 20 before
Okay.
there's an automatic lockout on that.
If I get locked out, because I'm testing on different platforms like virtualization and different, can I call in and have it reactivated?
Absolutely. Shoot an email to the support address.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you,
That's
Kevin.
good.
Thank you.
That's a good question because somebody wants me to move theirs to another machine.
Yeah, you could totally do that, Jesse. It's part of the software.
Yes.
Shoot me an email before you do that so that I can just tell you the steps so that you don't make any mistakes. Mike Shoughton, allowed to talk. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
In my Blue Iris status log, I keep getting a notification that says, for a specific camera, it says clip, format change. Can you tell me what that means? It's giving me the yellow exclamation point.
Well, first of all, make sure you're on a recent version, 539.
Very latest.
Format change indicates that the format of the video changed and it can't append to the file. So by default, Blue Iris tries to keep the file for 8 hours, and every time it's going to record or you restart the software even, it's going to try to append to that file. And if it's unable to append to the file, then you get that error message. And it's just really more of a warning. What it will do is just create a new file. I mean, it's not the end of the world, really. But why is it not able to append to the file? If any of your like overlays change, like if suddenly you're not recording the timestamp, that's considered a change to the format because now the overlays are stored. Or it could be something more basic like the resolution change, the aspect ratio, the rotation, any of those things that you used to display the video. If any of those things change, it has to start a new file basically. I mean, there have been some issues with customers where there's some mysterious, why is it changing? So what we've done with that, if you can shoot me a BVR file before and after that message, I could compare the files and see. I can give you a direct answer at that point.
Okay, I'll look closer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Okay, I have a question about video.
Okay.
If you go and look at a recorded video and it says video corrupt, what is that indicating?
Well, a corrupt video means a video that's unplayable. That's a direct answer. Why is it corrupt?
Yeah, did it not record
standard,
correctly or what?
Yeah, if you're recording to the default, the BVR file format, which we recommend you do, you shouldn't, if you see it with the BVR format, it's a little more troublesome. I mean, there could be anything at that point. I mean, there could be actual disk corruption. I mean, that is a possibility. But with MP4 format, anything other than the BVR format, if you've switched it somehow, there is a possibility that it's unplayable in your system. And Sam's pointed this out to me, that it's a bit of a misnomer. Basically, it may show files corrupt when in fact it's just unplayable on the system, given the configuration of the system. So that's only though if you're using anything other than BVR. If you're using the default BVR and you see that message, it's a little bit more troublesome because now we need to see, is there anything wrong with the drive? All of that stuff with Windows as well. There's a possibility.
Yeah,
the other
purposely.
thing to check is that if you're recording direct to disk, you want to make sure you have enough keyframes coming into the file. It can only start recording on a keyframe boundary. And it may say corrupt. It may use that wording, verbiage. It's maybe not completely accurate. If the file was created, yet there's no video added to it, that's another possibility that would happen if there's a problem with the keyframes.
When does that happen, or how does that happen?
Well, Sam might show the status, camera status. You can take a look at, he showed direct to disk, but if you do camera status, you can see, well, you have to have some enabled cameras, but you can see the key rate, the frame rate and the key rate of the cameras. And it's pretty quick to see if the key rate is too low. It's the number after the slash. So if you see slash, he's got a 0.27, 0.35. I mean, these are okay. We generally recommend 0.5 or higher.
Right.
Between 0.5 and 1. So if you see 0 there, that's an indication that really you can't record direct to disk with 0 keyframes. Because recording can only start when there's a keyframe. So that could possibly explain the corrupt video message.
So this is where you look, Jesse, like to see if your cameras are behaving properly, like 0.07, like this ADF3, like at 0.0, like.
How do you find that? How do you find this screen?
Status. And then it starts the log. Like the log tells you a lot of stuff too, like errors and issues with the server, as well as like that it's running correctly. Like you can see mine are all blue, right? So mine's running fine. The cameras tab tells you the stats for each of your cameras. And so we can't go into all this again, but like all the stuff is, so what you need to do is go to camera stream optimization article and it'll tell you like what these numbers mean on a per camera basis. And I dive into what it means from all your cameras basis. Then based off of what your issues are, like if your cameras are, lagging or whatever, it'll tell you like what to do on your cameras, what to do in Blue Iris to get it working.
The system that started doing that is out at a camp or whatever. We're not always there, but I set it up so that we can make sure there's nobody there that's not supposed to be there.
Right. I mean, at least now you have a framework to like identify what the problem is, like if it's with the cameras or with Blue Iris. And then if it's with the cameras, and obviously you'll eventually have to go out there and resolve it. But I'm not necessarily, like if you have a browser access to the cameras, then you can, solve it remotely. But at least like just you start reading these articles to understand like how Blue Iris works and how to troubleshoot your, these issues that you're having.
Thanks.
Okay.
Hey, Sam, on keyframe rate. So my keyframe rates are below 0.5. What do I need to change on the camera to raise that up? Is it the iframe rate?
Yeah, exactly. So
and I need to increase it. I think it's already at like 30.
No, it's not. It's all relative to the frames per second. So if your camera's cranking out 15 frames per second, the iframe interval should be 15. So basically, you're telling the camera, send me a keyframe. The iframe interval is like, if you set this to 15, that means every 15 frames, send me a iframe, the whole image.
Right.
And so if the frame rate is 15 frames per second, then that implies that every second Blue Iris will get a full frame, which is what it needs to like provide a good experience.
Right.
So
my frame rates are 15 to 20, but my keyframe rates are like 0.3.
I know. I mean, that's just doing the conversion. So like look at the settings right now. Like if the frame rate is 15 and this camera's set at 30, that means every 2 seconds you'll get an iframe, right?
Right.
You see the math, right?
So that 2 seconds equates to a point what?
Right. So like FPS is frames per second. So if you get one frame over 2 seconds, that's 0.5, right? In terms of math, like the ratio. You see?
Okay. Yeah.
So rule of thumb, just make it equal. Like if your camera's cranking out 15, then your iframe interval needs to be 15, like to provide a good experience. It could be as high as 30, but like unless you're having network issues, just rule of thumb, 15, 15, 15, 15. That's it.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Dan Johnson, allowed to talk.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. When I do an update to Blue Iris, it shuts down, does the update and comes back on. I have about 8 cameras, and usually sometimes about half of them don't show up. It just shows not connected, and the rest of them are working fine. And I sit there and turn the whole computer down, do everything and restart it all, and still they just show not connected. Then maybe the next morning, I go in, open up Blue Iris, they're all showing. And I've noticed that probably in the last year. Prior to that, whenever I did an update, as soon as it started back up, all the cameras were there just like they were before the update.
But you're not saying not connected, you're saying no signal, right?
Yeah, no signal. Yeah, they're all showing there, it just says no signal.
Yeah. I mean, that has to do with all the stuff. Ken, do you want to address it?
Yeah, well, the way to troubleshoot that is, did you check that the camera is still available in a browser on the computer? Can you still get to the camera okay?
Oh, yeah.
And then the next thing would be the security software exemptions. Check to make sure Blue Iris is exempt from all that. That's a possibility. That one of those is.
Oh, Dan, yeah, that's cool. Like you can just like when that happens, just check your camera stats. Like I'm pretty sure like it's gone down like considerably. And it could be because your network, like, you know, I can't solve that problem for you, but
Right.
if it's like, you know, wavering like that, and you notice it wavering like at different times, it's almost always the optimization. It's like, so it has to do with one of these settings in your cameras. Like, bottom line is like, you have to realize, well, I realize at least, where's that article? Rolling back. Where is it? I just had it. Oh, here, it's the first one. Duh. Okay, so like all these settings, like go through each one by one. Like, I'm pretty sure like you have some encoding that isn't good with Blue. It's not a standard that Blue Wire supports. Like all these plus signals or smart codecs, it optimizes the bandwidth for these manufacturers with their apps, but it doesn't help Blue Iris. And so if you're getting a no signal and then it comes back, I bet when you open the app, it forced the camera to start cranking out images again. And so Blue Iris is seeing that too because it's reading from the same stream. So like you have to make sure that the encodings, like all the stuff is very critical to like making sure that the cameras work. And so you have to go through each one of these and make sure that it's set up correctly. So like the no signal one, that's almost always the encoding is messed up. It's not that it's messed up, but it's different from what Blue Wires can handle. It's not a standard codec.
Okay, well, why would it handle it normally, except the only time it messes up is after I've done a software update? Then after a day, it's back to normal again.
Well, I mean, you don't know whether that's correlation or coincidence, right? Like, I can't answer that question because like just because you're seeing this behavior does not mean it correlates, right? So I don't know that. I don't know that for sure. But in general, no signal, and then it pops back every so often when you're like on the app. It's because of the encodings.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Well, we should add, if you're using hardware decoding as well, sometimes
Oh, right, that too.
that can go in and out. You try without it, just to see.
Without hardware encoding, okay.
Just to see hardware decoding on the video tab and camera settings, just to see if that's related. Because if it comes right back up with that off, that's an indication it's struggling to use the hardware decoding. We've over the last few versions, there have been some changes to that as well. So there'll be another update actually today. So if you're on the latest update track, 5398 will be out today to handle a couple edge cases again. These meaning things that I can't readily replicate, and some customers have come to me and said they're having issues with hardware decoding actually. So that could explain your issue, and so you can go to 5398 today, or back to 53817, known as the last stable version, and give that a try as well.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, there's so many little details. Like, I try to document as much as I can in these articles. So like, the hardware part is down here below. Like, I totally forgot about that, and Ken just reminded me of it. So, start checking off these checks that I outline in these articles, because in conversations you just can't remember all the stuff, all the little details. Okay, Dan, allowed to talk.
I've just finished talking.
Oh, okay, sorry. Thanks, Dan.
Different Dan. Hey.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Dan, Steve.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. Hey, on the BVR format, is really what that is. You take whatever the native stream from the camera. So let's just say it's 264, and then you've got some other wrapper data, metadata you put around that. Is that really all BVR is, or is BVR considered intellectual property and you're not open to talk about it.
Oh no, it's not fully documented everywhere, but yeah, it's nothing too proprietary. It's really just a format to be the most efficient way to quickly save video without having to format it into like an MP4 container, which has indexes, and it's and if it closes abruptly, or if there's a crash or something, that MP4 is now corrupted. So with the BVR file, it's designed to be pretty much corrupt proof, although we just were talking about that.
Right.
So if the software goes down, or the PC goes down, or the power, or whatever, during the middle of the recording, it should not, it should still be readable when you bring it back up. And the other advantage is that it can be viewed while it's recording. It's more like the files that something like your cable box would store. You know, it would store. Who uses cable boxes anymore? Like your Sling or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Store. Yeah.
yeah. So what I'm attempting to do is I've got a couple cameras that I continuously record, and trying to find a more efficient way to post-process those BVR files. And really what I'm after is some audio signatures. So I've been messing around with Audacity, and so in order to do that, I got to convert it into like an MP4, and was just really kind of getting at if there was a way that I didn't have to do the conversion, if I could just feed those BVR files to look for my audio signatures. I think that, yeah, that's about it. So, and I think really what you're saying is, or the answer is, well, you can't get away from converting them to an MP4 before I post-process the file looking for the information that I'm interested in.
Yeah, when you export to MP4, you can always select the option to not re-encode, and that way it just goes, there's no change then to the video. It just takes it right from the BVR, puts it to the MP4 without re-encoding it. So it's pretty quick to do that as well.
Yeah,
it still has to handle the audio, which is your question. So when it's in the BVR format, it's in the FLAC codec, FLAC.
Yep.
When it gets put to MP4, it has to use an MP4 friendly format. So the audio does always get re-encoded when you export to MP4, just because FLAC is not an MP4 codec. So let's use AAC or MP3.
Okay. And I have not tried cracking open a BVR file to look at it yet, but are the audio, does the audio portion of a BVR have a wrapper around it that might be easy just to go grab out of the BVR file? And you got to understand, Ken, I'm retired and it's cold outside and I got a lot of time on my hands. And so plus I'm a retired engineer. So I'm making this harder than it really needs to be, but I'm just trying to mess around with either some scripting or automation to be able to do this stuff, so I'm not doing it manually.
It's pretty straightforward, actually. I mean, I could just say right now, if you look for in the BVR file, it says the word blue, and then if you see blue, then 02, that's an audio packet.
Awesome.
And, yeah. And if you select to not, you can select to just store the PCM uncompressed as well, so it'll be more obvious and easy to pick out in that case.
Okay, so.
And you won't have to deal with the FLAC and decoding it and all that stuff.
So that's a camera setting?
No,
under audio.
Let's see if Sam can go there. So any camera's record tab, there's a format page. Oh, there we are. Format. Yeah, is that where we were? Yeah. Video file format. Yeah. Go back to that page you were just at.
Oh, sorry.
Video file format. And then see where it says use FLAC, you just uncheck that box. And then now it's it goes uncompressed PCM 16-bit.
Okay, because right now it looks like the way I'm set up, I do not have the FLAC compression checked. So I guess I'll have to play around with that. But what you're saying is if it is checked, the Blue O2 header would be the FLAC, would be encoded as FLAC. Is that
That's right.
correct?
I'm just saying it'd be easier for you just looking at the file and pulling it out to just store it as PCM. Then you can just write, create a WAV file or something from that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks, Dan.
I have a question about video, sort of. What's
Okay.
the easiest way to start so that, let's say you have a problem with somebody stealing something at your place and hand it off to somebody like the cops? I mean, what's the easiest way to start when you're recording videos? I have it set up so that it records straight to MP4s.
Oh, that's why you're getting corrupt playback, because you don't have the FYI for that previous question. So, so your question is, how do you
Make it the easiest way to hand it off to the cops if you need to.
I mean, you can just go to your files. Like, if you're continuously recording, you can just, go to one of them, start playing it, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this is a JPEG, sorry. Go to one of them, click it, like say this is the camera you're trying to like do it for, just go to it, like find out, like say this is the start of the theft or whatever. Right click, set start frame, and then play it, blah, 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 stop. Say this is the end of the crime. Right click, and then where is it? Set end frame. So now it's like, this is what you want to set to the law enforcement, for example. And then you can just do well, I'm just gonna copy.
Because like everybody can, open an MP4,
Yeah, so once you like find the like what you want, then just convert export, and then export to, and then save it to like wherever you want to save it, like downloads directory, and then you have an MP4. That's it.
Oh, so recording it straight from the beginning to an MP4 is likely to get corrupted?
Well, that's what we were just addressing. One of the major features of using the BVR format is resistance to corruption. So
then I might go change that.
yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, we definitely recommend staying with the BVR format all around. It allows you to do timeline playback, which is a huge feature of the software. It won't do that with just MP4 files.
Oh yeah, like all the stuff I just showed you, like, yeah, make sure the recording is BVR, not MP4.
Okay. I didn't really know that.
And then it's, yeah, like Blue Iris has all these tools. So like, just find, go to Eclipse. Let's just a quick demo, since it's always good to review this stuff. You can go back to the date that you want, like say it happened on the 9th. You can go back, you can choose a specific camera, like the cameras for that day. You can play it, and then you can, if this is where the crime happened, left click, set start frame, keep playing, boom, boom, boom.
Oh,
Right.
so you can like, so you're saying you could, if you see the video and you see a person in it, you can select that person?
All I'm saying is, like, if you have a whole bunch of recordings and you're trying to find some crime scene, you can quickly find out the date and camera for that file. You can start playing it, and then when you find that crime, you can put the markers and then export, and then save it to MP4 and send it to law enforcement.
Yeah. I know how to.
Yeah, so like I would suggest like we did a whole webinar on this. So like that's probably the best place to start. So I walk you through all this stuff in where is it? In storage. Like go to this webinar, recording the storage, it'll tell you how to store correctly and use the interface to like search for stuff, as well as actually this is the only one you need. Like just go through this webinar. I walk you through all of it. Okay.
Where do you find all these webinars and stuff?
It's in the YouTube. Just search for Blue Iris support.
Ah, okay.
Okay. All right, 9:29. We have time for one more question. So we have more than one question, unfortunately. All right, Timothy, you close it off for today.
Hey, Sam.
Hey, Tim.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I just had a question on those Regedit cameras. So I've been playing around with them, and I guess what I found was that if I set up with a mainstream, so to give everybody some background, I got a Regedit with the R810A cameras, and
which one do you have?
What's that?
What's the model number again?
Regedit R810A.
R810A. Okay.
They're newer cameras, I think. Pretty popular. But anyway, so if I set up with the mainstream, works great, right? And if I set up with the substream individually, works great too. I get 16 frames, right? But when I set up with the mainstream as the mainstream and the substream with the substream, that's when I get, if I look, and now that I see you playing and showing me the status of the cameras and seeing the streams, I could see that when I had them both set up, my frames per second went to 1 when I have the two set up like that. Like where everything's just kind of freezing. So I guess my question is, when I'm playing with the different video settings under configure, under the make, is there different settings per camera, or is that just kind of like a helper and the generic has all the same settings?
Wait, under the make, what does that mean?
Well, if you go to video and then you go to configure.
Oh, yeah. This is camera specific. This is for this camera.
Right. Is it just doing something? Is it just picking the right generic settings?
Oh, when you choose, I got you. Go ahead, Ken.
Can I do everything I could do onto the Regedit with the generic drop downs?
Okay, the main reason for having this make model list is to automatically populate the streams.
Profile.
And some cameras don't use RTSP. That's one thing. So we have to have direct implementation for those cameras as well.
Okay.
But the real reason to use the make model are for possibly better PTZ support. Maybe there are other features not exposed through OnVIF to the camera. So that we could only do through HTTP calls and like direct support for the camera.
Right. Okay.
The other thing is two-way audio. If your camera has two-way audio, you're not going to want to use generic OnVIF because the two-way audio is designed around an individual camera. It's not anything that's standardized in any way. So you have to select a make model to get the two-way audio to work.
Okay.
So if you have OnVIF, like as far as the mainstream and substream, using the OnVIF and find inspect is the way to go, right, Ken?
Actually, yeah. It's a great tool to use, the find inspect, to find the streams. But after that, like I said, if you have other direct functionality from the camera that you're hoping to get to work, we may have already implemented it. Like the two-way audio or more advanced PTZ commands, or in some cases, some camera-based triggering that's not OnVIF based. So there's some of that in there. And to use that stuff, you need to select the make model.
Okay.
So Tim, like when you say that putting both streams, it just drops the frame rate. Are these streams based off of OnVIF or?
Yeah, based upon the generic OnVIF.
oh, I mean, that's coming from Reolink. Like we don't, we take instructions from Onviv from what Reolink provides. So that's kind of funky.
Yeah,
Like Reolink, you want to use the RTMP if possible. Their RTSP server is no good. I mean, it breaks. We're kind of going. This is an emergent issue with Reolink. Actually, they have a couple new models like 810, I think, with upgraded firmware as well, where they've basically they've changed the way that the RTMP works, and we'll have to kind of go back and redo that. So right now, customers are having to fall back to RTSP on Reolink, and their RTSP support is not very good. So it maybe that's exactly what you're describing. It works for a little while, then it stops working. And what's happening is the camera internally is crashing. It's got its firmware, so it's really running software on the camera as well. So the way they've gotten around it is they don't use it. Reolink does not use their own RTSP. They use RTMP through their web interface. So, but they've changed it for the 810, and we're going to have to follow up on that and try to reverse engineer it. The other possibility is you can just go back to an older firmware possibly. So that you can get RTMP working again on your camera. But like I said, this is an ongoing issue with Reolink. Stay tuned. So.
Okay, all right, thanks, appreciate it. Let me know if you guys come up with a solution. Like I said, I've tried everything, and I just find it weird that I could get one stream to work perfectly, like the mainstream RTSP, and then the secondary stream, if I add that in there, works perfectly, no problem, 16 frames per second. But when I put them both in there, that's when it just freezes, right? And so that's why I thought thinking that maybe it was a Blue Iris issue where, it's trying to do that flip, or it's trying to read them both at the same time. Because if I open up in a VLC, I can pull up two windows side by side, RTSP, both streams, and see them both, and they both play fine. So that's why
Oh, so maybe it is a Blue Iris issue. So you want to send that question to support. There's one change that's coming as well. It's been evolving in 5.3.9, is the use of hardware decoding for both the substream and the mainstream. So try with hardware decoding off. That would be more like what VLC is doing potentially. The other thing that VLC does that Blue Iris doesn't do by default is use RTP over UDP, it's called. So maybe, there's a potentially the camera's more stable with RTSP using that UDP setting. But really what we want to do is get you off of using RTSP on Reolink because it's known to be an issue. We want to get back to RTMP.
Okay.
We're going to work for that.
Okay, thanks guys.
If you can send us the, if you're able to, like, put the camera on the net and we can have remote access, that'd be really helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I had it down there and I took it down. I put it back in the box. I was thinking about taking it back. Actually, I've also bought one of those like all my Hikvision cameras work perfectly. So,
Oh, is this the one? Did you?
Yeah.
Are you the one with the A10A? Oh, okay. I rather recognize you. Okay, cool. Thanks, Tim.
No problem. Thanks, Tim. Sam. Thanks, Ken.
Okay, so it's 9:37. I think we'll wrap it up for today. I know there's still some open questions, but looks like time ran out. Any closing thoughts, Ken, before we leave?
Oh, just my usual. Thanks everybody for showing up. And
ditto that.
Hey Sam, are you going to post the other videos? For the last couple weeks, I've missed most of the last 2 or 3, and I went back to check and I haven't seen them.
Yeah, we'll get those up probably later today. Sorry about that. We've been a little bit behind too with tickets and stuff too. So yeah, we'll get it up.
Understand. Just was curious. I was hoping you guys recorded them.
We did. So yeah, we'll do that. Okay.
Awesome.
Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.